The Assyrian Tree of Life, Part 2. The Assyrian Tree Diagram. For the above reasons, I have for years considered the identity of the Assyrian and Sephirotic trees an attractive but probably unprovable hypothesis, until it finally occurred to me that there is a way of proving or rejecting it. For if the Sephirotic tree really is but an adaptation of a Mesopotamian model, the adaptation process should be reversible. That is, it should be possible to reconstruct the original model without this difficulty. The basic elements of the tree, the Sephiroth, are crucial in this aspect. Their names and definition strongly recall the attributes and symbols of Mesopotamian gods, and their prominent association with numbers calls to mind the mystic number of the Mesopotamian gods. They are, in fact, represented as angelic beings in some Sephirotic schemes, which consists with their definition as divine powers. Accordingly, in the hypothetical Mesopotamian model, they would have been gods, with functions and attributes coinciding with those of the Sephiroth. Consequently, I replaced the Sephiroth with Mesopotamian gods, sharing their functions and/or attributes. Most gods fell into their place immediately, and uniquely. Assyriologists will need to no justification for associating Ea with wisdom, Sin with understanding, Marduk with mercy, Shama with judgment, Ishtar with beauty, and Nabu and Ninurta with victory. Crone, Keter, was the emblem of both Anu and Enlil, but since the first millennium, Enlil was commonly equated with Marduk. Just as his son Ninurta was equated with Nabu. The topmost Sephria most naturally corresponds to Anu, the god of heaven. Foundation, Jesad, corresponds to Negal, lord of the underworld. Those primary characteristics, strength, is in Akkadian homonymous with the word for foundation, Dunu. For the identification of the art with Mumu, consciousness, the number 0, see note 111 and 125 below. I had to resort to Talquist, Akkadish, Götterplichetta to find that only gods with epithets fitting the Sephiroth Hod, splendor and mastery, were the storm god Adad, the fire god Guru and Marduk, Nabu and Ninurta, the last three of whom already had their place in the diagram. Accordingly, the Sephria corresponds to Adad and Giru, who share the same mystical number. And it's noteworthy that in the Bible the word Hod refers to Yeveh as thundering and flashing storm. The last Sephria kingdom, Malkut, is identified as the representative potency which distributes the divine stream to the lower worlds, which in Mesopotamia can only apply to the king as the link between God and man. The motif of the king as distributor of the divine stream is repeatedly encouraged on Assyrian seals, where it holds a streamer emanating from the winged disc above the sacred tree. I have excluded this Sephria from the reconstruction model because it breaks the compositional harmony of the tree, and because the king, through impersonating the tree, clearly does not form part of it in Assyrian art. Once the gods had been placed in the diagram, which did not take longer than half an hour, I filled their mystic number using the guide which V. Rawlings' article Göttersalen in the Real Lexicon der Assyriology. For the most part, this was purely mechanical operation. In some cases, however, I had to choose between 2 or 3 alternate numbers. The numbers shown in figure 9 are those used in the spelling of divine names in the Middle and Neo-Assyrian standards, and all of them are securely attested. I should point out that the number of Anu 1 is erroneously given as 60 in Rawlings' article. Of course, the vertical wedge can also be read 60, but in the case of Anu, the first god, the only reading that makes sense is 1, as we shall see presently. The ease with which the gods and their numbers fitted into the diagram was almost too good to be true, and all the insight obtained in the process were more than encouraging. Suddenly, not only the diagram itself, but the perplexing Mesopotamian religion as well started to make sense. I felt on the verge of a major discovery. The distribution of gods and numbers in the diagram. Looking at the reconstructed diagram more closely, one observes that particularly all the great gods of the Assyrio-Babylonian pantheon figure in it, some occupying the same place because they were theological equivalent. Only one major god is missing, Assur, for whom no mystic number is attested. This strongly suggests that this important god has to be identified with the winged disc over the Assyrian tree from which divine stream emanates, and accordingly is identical with the transcendent god of Kabbalah, Ensof. As a matter of fact, the various spellings of Assur's name can without difficulty be interpreted as expressing the idea of the one, only, or universal God. As well as the various qualities of Ein Sof, the solar disk through which he was primarily represented, implies that his essential nature was light, as in Kabbalah. Of the gods found in the diagram, Anu, king of heaven, occupies the crown. Ishtar, his daughter representing all female deities, occupies the middle, and Negail, the lord of the underworld, is at the base of the trunk. The remaining gods are arranged to the right and left sides of the trunk, in the corresponding way which sons line under their fathers. In other words, the tree is composed of 3 successive generations of gods appearing horizontally as interland trinities, to be compared with the triadic configuration of nodes, volutes and circles of a Assyrian tree. The lines connecting the gods exactly render the divine genealogies known from late 2nd and early 1st millennium texts. But that is not all. The distribution of the mystic number in the diagram, figure 8, adds to it a dimension unknown in the Sephirotic tree. 6 of the numbers are full tens, all neatly arranged in descending order on the branches of the tree. Those higher than 30 to the right, the rest to the left side. The number of the trunk are not tens, and their rearrangement is different. They begin with 1, as in the Sephirotic tree, but the following 2 are not in numerical order. Does this distribution make any sense? Initially, we note that the numbers on the trunk were added together, yield 30, the median number of the sexagesimal system. From the standpoint of number harmony, this tallies beautifully with the median position of the trunk and recalls the Kabbalistic designation, the pillar of equilibrium. The position of number 15 in the center of the diagram is justifiable from the point of view. On the surface, the number on the right and left of the trunk seem to upset the balance of the tree because the numbers on the left is coincidentally smaller than those on the right. Yet, when one adds the numbers together, one obtains for each branch the same total 30. As for the trunk, the pillar of equilibrium, this is so because the number on the left side, according to the polar system of options governing the tree, are negative, and those have to be subtracted from those on the right side. The sum total of the branches on the trunk is 4 times 30 is 120, added to the sum total of the individual numbers 1, 10, 14, 15, etc. yield 360, the number of days in the Assyrian cultic year and the circumferences of the universe expressed in degrees. In all, it can be said that this distribution of the mystic numbers in the diagram displays an internal logic and remarkably contributes to the overall symmetry, balance, and harmony of the tree. All this numerical beauty is lost with the decimal numbering of the Sephirotic tree, which only reflects the genealogical order of the gods. The fact that the numerical balance of the tree can be maintained only by the conditions that the left side number are negative, as required by the Kabbalistic theory. In my opinion, amounts to mathematical proof of the correctness of the reconstruction, coinciding further the perfect match obtained with the placement of the gods, the groupings into meaningful triad and genealogies, and the identification of a sword with a winged disc. I feel very confident in concluding that the Sephirotic tree did have a direct Mesopotamian model, and that this model was perfect in the Assyrian Empire, most probably in the early 13th century BC. Being able to reconstruct this tree, date it, and understand the doctrinal system underlying it has tremendous implication to the history of a religion and philosophy which can be pursued within the limits of this paper. I will content myself with 3 concrete examples illustrating how the insight provided by the 3 are bound to revolutionize our understanding of Mesopotamian religion and philosophy. The 3 and Mesopotamian religion and philosophy. The birth of the gods in Enuma Elish. In Enuma Elish, the narrator, having related the birth of Anu, mysteriously continues, and Anu generated Nudimud, Ea, his likeness. This can only be a reference to the fact that the mystic number of these 2 gods, 1 and 60, were written with the same sign, and indicates that the composer of epic conceives the birth of the gods as a mathematical process. On the surface, of course, the theogony of Enuma Elish is presented in the terms of human reproduction. As the example just quoted shows, however, it did involve more than just one level of meaning. In fact, the curious sentence sequence of birth presented in Table 1:15 makes much better sense than it is represented mathematically as follows. When the primordial state of the undifferentiated unity Apsu, Mamu, Tiamat, in which nothing existed, came to an end, nothingness was replaced by the binary system of opposition, Lahumu and Lahamu, and the infinite universe Ansar, Asur, with a negative counterpart, Kishar. Asur emerged heaven, Anu, as his primary manifestation to mirror his existence to the world. Those rephrase the passage come very close to Kabbalistic and Neoplatonic metaphysics. Line 21 to 24 of Tablet 1 of Enuma Elish seems to describe the birth of the mystic number of sin, which can be derived from the number of Ea by simply dividing it by 2. The irritation of Apsu, caused by this play with numbers and the subsequent killing of Apsu and leashing of Mamu, seems to be an etymology for emanation of the 3rd number and establishment of the places of Ea and Mamu in the 3 diagram. The birth of Marduk, the next god in the diagram, is described in the following lines as expected. Marduk, mystic number, like the number of all the remaining gods, can be derived from preceding numbers by simply arithmetical operations. The prominent part played by numbers, both in Enuma Elish and the Assyrian tree, of course, immediately recalls the central role of mathematics and divine numbers in Pythagorean philosophy. Pythagoras. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Looking at the Epic of Gilgamesh through Kabbalistic glasses, a new interpretation of the epic can be proposed, viewing it as a mystical path of spiritual growth, culminating in the acquisition of superior esoteric knowledge. The path proceeds in stages through the tree of life, starting from its root, dominating by an animal passions. The tree of Negal, Tablet 1, the names of the gods governing the individual stages are encoded in the content of the tablets, and they follow the order in which are found in the tree, read from bottom to top. Tablet 2, which has no counterpart in the tree, deals with spiritual awakening. Tablet 3 outlines the path. The Tablet 4 describes the final breakthrough to the source of supernatural knowledge. The late version of the epic consists of 12 tablets, the last of which widely considered an inorganic appendage breaking the formal completeness of the epic, which had come full circle between the survey of Uruk in Tablet 1 and the same survey at the end of Tablet 11. In reality, nothing could be farther from the truth. Without the 12th tablet, the epic would be a torso, because, as well as we shall see, it contains the ultimate wisdom that Gilgamesh brought back from his adventurous search for life. The wisdom was not meant for the vulgus, and it's therefore hidden in the texts. But the epic is full of clues to help the serious reader to penetrate its secrets. The refrain at the end of the Tablet 11 is one of these. Far from signaling the end of the epic, it takes the reader back to square one. The prologue, where he is advised to examine the structure of the walls of Uruk until he finds the gate to the secret, a lapis lazuli tablet locked inside a box. The walls of Uruk is the metaphor for Tablet 1 to 11. The tablet box is the surface story, and the lapis lazuli tablet is the sacred structural framework of the epic, the tree diagram. Once it is realized that the epic is structured after the tree, the paramount importance of Tablet 12 becomes obvious, for it corresponds to the crown of the tree, Anu, heaven, which would otherwise have no correspondence in the epic. On the surface, there is no trace of heaven in the Tablet 12. On the contrary, it deals with the death and the underworld, the world, heaven, or the god Anu, not even being mentioned in it, and it seems to end on an utterly pessimistic and gloomy note. When considered in the light of the psychological tree and the spiritual development outlined in the previous tablets, however, the message of the tablet changes character. We see Gilgamesh achieving reunion with his dead friend Enkidu, being able to converse with him and those to acquire precious knowledge from him about life after death. And what is more, he achieved his reunion in exactly the same way as he did in Tablet 9, but by prolonged weeping and praying. In other words, the unique mystic experiences recounted in Tablet 9 to 11 were presented as something totally new and unusual, as in Tablet 12 become a firmly established technique by which similar experiences can be sought at will. In Jewish mysticism, such experiences are referred to as ascent to heaven or entering paradise, and regarded as tremendous event revered only to perfectly ethical perfectly stable men. The evolution of Gilgamesh into a man is described in detail in Tablet 1 to 8. In the early 3rd century, Jewish mystical texts Hekharlo Rabati The very concept of mystical ascents to heaven is revealed to the Jewish community as a revolutionary secret of the world. There can be no doubt whatsoever that this very secret revealing the way to heaven was the precious secret that Gilgamesh brought back from his journeys to Utnapishtim. The Mesopotamian myth of Etana is well known for its central motif, a man's ascent to heaven on an eagle's back. It was thus been classified as an adventure story or early science fiction containing the first known account of space travel. The old eagle-back ascent motif has been recognized to reoccur in Hellenistic, Jewish and Islamic folktales and legends, and has also been connected with Greek myth and Gilgamesh and the Alexander romance. Much less attention has been paid to the tree inhabited by the eagle and the snake, which figures so prominently in the second tablet of the myth. Without going into unnecessary detail, it can be suggested here that the three-eagle serpent theme in tablet 2 is an allegory for the fall of man, and the ascent to heaven described in tablet 3 is to be understood as a mystical ascent of the soul crawling an arduous program of spiritual restoration. Seen in this light, the myth becomes closely related to the Gilgamesh epic in substance and in presenting Etana as the first man who achieved the ascent. It forcefully contributes to the notion of Mesopotamian king as the perfect man. The tree of tablet 2 is Etana himself, whose birth is sprouting marks. The eagle and the serpent are conflicting aspects of man's soul, and one capable of carrying him to heaven and the other one pulling him down to sin and death. The deal struck by the eagle with the serpent marks the beginning of Etana's moral corruption as king. Ignoring the voices of his conscience, he becomes guilty of perfidy, greed, and murder. For this he is punished. The serpent attacks the eagle, cuts off its wings, and throws it into the bottomless pit. This is an allegory of spiritual death. The same idea is expressed by the childlessness of Etana, to whom the narrative now returns. End of part 2 of the Assyrian Tree of Life, written by parpola and read by Luna AD.